He's absolutely right. What Will's basic point is that the roadster should be essentially melting, because what's happening here, and I'm going to play this little clip from him here in just a bit, but what's happening is the sun, hitting the roadster. And Elon said several times that they didn't do anything at all special to prepare this car for going out into space. And of course, by not doing that and just keeping all the stock equipment on there and everything, the direct radiant heat from the sun would have heated this thing up to about 260 degrees Celsius, otherwise known as 500 degrees Fahrenheit, which, guys, if you don't know how hot that is, that's typically the highest setting that your oven can go on broil, right? So imagine putting a Tesla Roadster inside of your oven and putting it on broil, and just see how long it lasts. It's not going to last long. So let's listen to this guy that Will's got on here for just a few minutes, and let him make this point, and then we will elaborate on it. So here we go.
I'm Fraser Kane, the publisher of Universe Today. Let's look close to home, in orbit around the planet at the International Space Station. A piece of bare metal in space under constant sunlight can get as hot as 260 degrees Celsius. This is dangerous to astronauts who have to work outside the station. If they need to handle bare metal, they wrap it in special coatings or blankets to protect themselves. And yet in the shade, an object will cool down to minus 100 degrees Celsius. Astronauts can experience vast differences in temperature between the side facing the sun and the side in shadow. Their spacesuits compensate using heaters and cooling systems.
The next question from Marcia Dunn at Associated Press.
Marcia Dunn, AP. What was going through your mind? How amazed were you to see your roadster up there with Starman just cruising along with the Blue Planet? And how long will we be getting live views, do you think, from the car?
Well, I think it looks so ridiculous and impossible.
A piece of bare metal in space under constant sunlight can get as hot as 260 degrees Celsius.
And but we didn't really test any of those materials for, is it space hardened or whatever, So it just has the same seats that like a normal car has. It's just literally a normal car in space. Which I kind of like the absurdity of that.
A piece of bare metal in space under constant sunlight can get as hot as 260 degrees Celsius.
But we didn't really test any of those materials for, is it space hardened or whatever, So it just has the same seats that like a normal car has.
He sounds like a genius, doesn't he?
In space.
Or whatever.
Or whatever.
How hot it is in Italy. The car is melted.
Okay, so basically what they're showing here, in the audio is way down, so I'll just kind of comment over the top of it. This is what happens, obviously, to a car with the trim and interior or whatever, when it's exposed to, high temperatures. And beyond this, Will's going to show another place that's in London, where they have this building that basically focuses heat down onto one particular spot. It acts kind of like a parabolic reflector. And it's amazing how hot it gets. In fact, they had to cordon it off because cars that were parking there were literally melting. They were turning out looking like this. And of course, it would also blister the paint as well. So here's
London's
this.
latest hotspot. In the middle of the city's bustling heart, a bizarre beam of light radiates onto the street. Powerful, dazzling, and searingly hot. The cause of this phenomenon? This 37-story tower. Once known as the walkie-talkie, it's been renamed as the walkie-scorchy. The half-built building's curved construction has had an unfortunate effect.
If you look up, you can see it is curved. And so that's a vast area up there, and it's collecting a lot of solar energy. Now, if that was to go out in all directions, it wouldn't really matter. But it's focusing down onto a point, and it's focusing down here. So all that solar energy is getting pushed down here, and the temperatures down here are getting really, really high.
So high it managed to record a temperature of an astonishing 92.6 degrees Celsius.
Well, the sun has started to come out and it's already hitting the building behind me, and already you can feel quite an intense heat here.
Anything in the direct glare of the reflection can literally go up in smoke. It damaged this car parked nearby. It's caused carpets to smolder, tiles to smash. It's so hot you can even fry an egg and singe your hair trying.
That's hot.
Just as you march through, you really feel the heat. It's quite intense.
It's worse as you're coming through.
It can.
Well, here we go. Stay all afternoon.
Yeah, it is quite hot here.
Yeah. So needless to say, this is point number one, that the Tesla, the paint should have blistered, among other things. We're going to get to all those other things here, but just kind of want to elaborate on this, that, things cannot survive in that type of heat. And of course, we've also made the same argument about the ISS. The ISS, NASA kind of brushes aside the temperature of the thermosphere because they say, well, because there really isn't enough air molecules up there to provide any convective damage to it. And it's like, well, again, that's not the problem. It's the direct radiant heat, that would absolutely cook that. I don't know if you guys remember, and maybe they still have these, but when we first got our very first microwave oven back in the 70s, it had with it what was called a broiler plate, a special broiler plate. It was just basically ceramic, and it had a slab of steel inside of it. And basically what was happening is the microwave would directly radiate that steel, and it would become searing hot. And you could actually sear things in it because it didn't, the microwaves don't tend to brown things very well. So they had this searing plate on there that would actually put a little bit of color to the meat and stuff if you cooked it in there. And again, this is the same thing. You cannot expose bare metal to this type of radiant heat without it getting, to 500 degrees Fahrenheit at least, and maybe even more. So
it's astounding that was 90 degrees. And the temperature that's supposed to be hitting the Tesla Roadster is 260 degrees. Okay, it's an invulnerable car.
Exactly. And Will made a mistake. He put Fahrenheit in here, 260 Fahrenheit, but 260 C is 500 Fahrenheit. So, yikes. Unbelievable. And again, the fanboys are all out there. Oh, yeah, you guys, I'm sure you saw a lot of the comments. I certainly got them on Globebusters, people coming in saying, oh, flat Earth is dead. Elon Musk just put a car in space.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's so sad.
We have been dead like 100 times now.
Yeah, flat Earth, it's over, it's finished.
It's over, yeah. We are all dead.
Yeah. Isn't it desperate, though, guys? Don't you see it? I see it as such a desperate move. Just like very blatantly, obviously, a desperate move. Not for the PR, for the Tesla Roadster, but for the whole globe nonsense. It's all a PR stunt for that, for the globe. And you've, Bob, have you, and Jaron, actually, Eru, all of you, have you been looking at the chats in those live feeds and seeing how many people are saying fake versus how many people are? It's just, they're losing this hands down.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the difference between now and 2 years ago, you were hard pressed to find one comment in a space article or in a space live feed to find one flat earther in there starting to question things was pretty shocking. Now I think it's as far as the comments go, is over 50% are people questioning what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Then this is why we're getting such a response from the mainstream, trying to pick up the slack with ridiculous articles like, what I just read from Science Today or whatever that article was. But there's many of those. So there's several of those. In fact, I have another one here. And let's see again, hat tip to Robbie Davidson. But here we go. So Elon Musk SpaceX Falcon Heavy spotted speeding through space by virtual telescope.
Oh God, is that what you sent me earlier?
I don't know if I did or not. I may have, but I saw this is something else that's going on in the comments, and some of the Globers, they're like, oh yeah, I rented telescope time, and I was actually able to see the car going through space, right? And they have this, and they show this little teeny tiny light going by.
Even the observatory of Spain, one of the observatory in Spain, showed that little line and said that was the car. And when you start thinking, that car maybe was, I don't know, 5,000 kilometers
Yeah,
from
exactly.
the Earth, and you can pick up with a telescope, and you don't pick up any satellite out there, anything else. But the car, yeah, I can see the car.
Well, yeah, I mean, actually, look at this. The picture that they show, I don't know what happened to the video. They did have a video on here earlier. Maybe it's on another one. But the particular shots that they were showing, they said that it was, 470,000 kilometers from us. And 470,000 kilometers is 300,000 miles. In other words, they're tracking this little guy and seeing this light going through space at more than, further than the distance to the moon, allegedly, right?
Oh, boy. But we can't see the LEM with telescopes or anything like that on the moon.
Nope.
Makes sense.
But yeah, and they even call this, what do they call it, a quasi-telescope or a virtual telescope? Yeah, virtual. What the heck is a virtual telescope?
It's the news.
It's virtually real. Virtually real.
Yeah, what's funny is that I remember learning in economics class that one of the words that you can use in any kind of advertisement is virtually, because it allows you to say anything. You could say your fast food is virtually fat free, whatever you want to say, because virtually is not a real word. It means nothing. You could be virtually the number one store in the country, but it doesn't mean anything. So it's actually a word that's used a lot.